Hi kindergarten, welcome back to Art with Miss Buchelt. I'm so glad to see you guys again today, and we are going to be moving on to our step 2 of our project this week. Now our project was focusing on different kinds of lines. Yep, different kinds of lines. So we talked about thin lines, we talked about thick lines, we've talked about zigzag and wavy and swirly lines. And what we did on step 1 is we made our spring trees. Now the lines that we used in our spring tree were straight thin lines, curved lines, and then some swirl lines. Now the swirl lines are made to make our little buds of the trees because the trees are starting to bud and blossom with new leaves and new flowers. So that's why we are making a spring line tree today. So step 2, we are going to be adding our line patterns inside of our trees. Now after we add our line pattern inside of the tree, we're going to get to add color to it. So today the supplies you are going to need are a coloring choice. So for me, I'm choosing coloring crayons, that's my choice. But you could choose markers if you want, or colored pencils, or if you really like painting and you want to do watercolor paint, you can do watercolor paint too. But Miss B is going to be using crayons for her color today, my color choice. And you will need your black marker. Now remember we did our black markers on our spring trees. Okay, whatever black marker you used for that, you'll want to use that one again. Okay, if you use a permanent marker or a Sharpie, or if you use just a Crayola marker or a pen, whatever you used, make sure that you go find that again. All right, let's learn how do we put our line pattern in our tree and add color. Okay, so we have our list of lines that we had made. If you did not make a list of lines, you can just look at the ones here on my page. We have the thin line, the narrow line, the thick line. We have the zigzag. We have the dotted line, the swirly line, the double zigzag line. We have Miss B's heart line that she made. We have a shape line. We have a dashed line. Those are short lines. Then we have a long dash line. So they're longer dashes instead of the short ones. Remember, you could have come up with all your own lines too if you can come up with some new ones that Miss B didn't think of. So don't worry if you have extra lines. Now what you're gonna do is you're gonna choose some of these lines and you're gonna put them inside of your spring tree. Inside of your spring tree. Okay, not on the outside, the inside. And we're gonna fill in this trunk of the tree and all of the branches using the different lines. So when you get to the branches, or I actually would like you to start at the branches here, you're gonna do each branch using a different kind of line. Okay, for example, in this first branch, I'm going to do a zigzag line. So I'm going to do zigzag to fill up that entire branch. Now this branch has small branches that come off of it, but I'm gonna still do zigzags. My zigzags are just gonna become smaller if it's a smaller branch. Okay, so there I did my first zigzag branch. Next, let's see, how about I do a dotted line? Okay, so my next branch is gonna have my dotted line inside of it. So remember, they can be a pattern if you would want to keep creating the same type of lines. Let's say you really like zigzags and you want to do a lot of zigzags. Go ahead and do as many zigzag lines as you would like inside of your branches. If you like zigzags and the polka dot line like Miss B is doing, then you can do a pattern. Now remember, a pattern is when you repeat something over and over. So I would do zigzag, polka dot, zigzag, polka dot, zigzag, polka dot, zigzag on all of my branches. Okay, so Miss B is gonna finish putting lines in all of her branches, but once you get done with putting your lines in your branches, you are then going to create a line pattern down here. Okay, so Miss B is gonna start with a swirl, and then I'm going to do a thin line, then a dot, then a zigzag, and then a bold. So mine is kind of a difficult pattern because I'm using lots of lines. You can make yours more simple if you would like to make it simple. So then I'm just going to repeat that same order that I did. Swirl, thin line, dot line, zigzag, bold, or thick line. All right, so go ahead and start doing your line designs inside of your tree. Okay, so here is a close-up of the lines that I did on my tree. So I used my thin line, my heart line. I did the short dash and the long dash. I mixed them together. I did bold, thick lines. I did swirls. I did the polka dot line and zigzag lines. Now we're ready for color. All right, it is time to start adding color to our spring trees. Okay, so you are gonna grab your color choice. So I chose crayons, and the colors that you are going to need are gonna be a little bit up to you, but the one that everybody has to do is we're gonna make our tree brown. Okay, so make sure that you find your brown color so that we can color the inside of our tree and the branches all with our brown. Okay, so you're gonna just color right over those lines that you drew. Okay, they shouldn't move on you, especially if you're using a crayon. Now, if you used a Crayola black marker instead of like a Sharpie marker, and you're gonna use water color paint, or you're gonna use other Crayola markers, it may not work the same way. It may color over it and mix together. So if you have a crayon, I really recommend grabbing crayons when you're coloring at least this inside part around your branches and the trunk of your tree. Okay, so you should have your brown all colored in the trunk and the branches of your leaves. The next step is we are going to, or branches of our trees, excuse me. We are going to now add the color in onto our buds. Okay, now those are the little blossoming leaves or flowers. Now this is your choice of what kind of color you would like to add to it. But Miss B has decided she wants hers to be like a leaf. So I'm going to have a couple of different kinds of greens here. I'm going to see how many greens I can find in my crayon container here. I think I have just, oh, do I have three? I have three. Awesome, I have three different kinds of greens here. Okay, I have a dark green, and I have a light green, and then I have a yellow green. Okay, yellow green means there's more yellow mixed into the green than there is blue. Okay, so I have my three different kinds of greens here, and I'm just going to alternate. Alternate means to switch colors. So I'm gonna switch every time I color in a new bud so that all of my buds on my tree have different kind of green in there. Okay, so here is a close-up of how I did my green buds on the branches of my tree. And remember, yours could have been flowers of different colors, or you could have done green just like Miss B did. Okay, so now we're on to our final step, and that is creating the color of our sky. Okay, now I have decided that I want my spring tree to have almost like an early morning sunrise. So when the sun is coming up before any of us are out of bed yet, right? So we have blue. Blue is to show the dark that is leaving. So the nighttime is leaving. And then it's going to fade into the purple, because when the light starts to mix with the blue, it starts to lighten up and creates kind of a purple. And then the final color I chose is going to be pink. Okay, so when Miss B says fade, I mean that my colors are going to change into each other. So I'm going to start with my blue first. You can choose just to use one color in your sky. If you want all of your sky to be blue or all of your sky to be light blue, that is your choice, okay? But Miss B is going to do a change of color. So if you want to learn how to do a change of color, grab at least 2, if not more, different colors that you would like your sky to be. So I'm going to start with my blue. And I'm going to begin on the bottom of my paper. And I'm just going to start filling in my sky all the way with blue until I think maybe about here is where I'm going to stop. Okay, so I'm going to show where I'm going to stop with my blue, and I'm going to color that all in. So I got my blue done, so I shouldn't need too much of that, so I'm going to put that to the side. Next, I'm going to grab my purple. Now, when you are trying to change colors from one into the other, you kind of want to do something we call overlapping. Now, overlapping means that we are going to put one color on top of the other color, and that will help kind of give it that look that it's going to be changing. Okay, so I'm going to start doing my purple over my blue like this, and then I'm going to keep pushing my purple up more into my sky. And you can see how the purple and the blue are starting to mix right here. And it looks like a pretty normal change in my sky. So I think I'm going to bring my purple up to about the middle of my tree here. Now, when you get to your tree here and you don't want to hit your buds, make sure that you're coloring around them, okay? This part gets a little tricky and you may have to take your time, okay? But take your time and go a little bit slower as you come around the buds of your tree. Okay, so I have my purple done now. And one thing you'll notice is that Miss B is not pressing very hard with her crayon. So make sure you're not pressing too hard with your crayon if you're doing the color changes in there. So now my final color is going to be my pink. Now I really liked how that was pretty easy to do using my crayon that didn't have the paper on it, okay, kind of like how we do our crayon rubbings, right? So if you found that that was easy for you, go ahead and do the same with any of your other crayons as long as your moms and dads say it's okay. All right, so now we're gonna move into doing our pink. So we're gonna, again, overlap, okay? That means to put on top of, we're gonna put our pink on top of our purple, and then we're gonna finish coloring in the rest of our spring sky. And here is my finished spring tree line project. Okay, you'll see that I did a blue that faded into my purple, which then fades into my light pink. Thanks for creating with me today, kindergarten. I hope you had lots of fun getting to do your spring tree line project. I hope you have a really great rest of your week, and happy Easter to all of you. Love you, miss you. Bye.